My name is Alex, and if there's one thing I want you to take away from tonight, it's cancer. Yeah. Okay, probably a bit harsh. What I actually want you to take away is that we can genetically modify your immune system to fight cancer, but if you remember cancer, you're probably going to remember that bit. But I've just given away the ending to my story. So I'm going to start where all the best stories start, with an immunologist. But what is an immunologist? And we're not all straight to video stars kicking ass and stopping global pandemics one AK-47 at a time. And if you have seen that film, I pity you, it's fucking terrible. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, an immunologist is someone who gets their money from Big Pharma to push a fake COVID outbreak and who loves to suck on Dictator Dan's communist agenda. Sorry, that was Twitter. That's what happens when you do your own research. But let's be honest, half the Nature papers out there aren't really worth the 2-ply they're printed on, though, are they? Yeah, you can tell I've not got a Nature paper. Now, obviously I mentioned COVID because for a few years, that was huge for all of us, and none more so than us immunologists. We were in high demand. Not a day went by when my phone wouldn't stop ringing with the question, what should I do about COVID? And I would always answer in exactly the same way. Mum, can you stop calling me, please? For the 100th time, I don't work on COVID, and no, it's not a Chinese conspiracy to kill us all, no matter what Facebook tells you. Boomers. It's clearly because a bat fucked a pangolin at a food market. Although, we're smart as the public. We didn't really need immunologists to help save us from COVID. We knew where the real cure could be found. Woolies. It was like a collective epiphany. I've never been so proud. It was like, should we wear a mask? Yeah, nah, let's just hoard 300 rolls of toilet paper just in case it makes us shit ourselves. All right, ScoMo, calm down. Hope there's no Liberal fans in the group. Now, I have a confession to make. And I wasn't actually in Melbourne for the lockdowns, which means I didn't share in your collective trauma. In 2017, I was actually in the human toilet that is the UK. Ah, crap, that's the wrong picture. Sorry, hang on. That's better. And I got stuck due to Chairman Dan's border closures. But what it did do was allow... Not coming in. And the UK took a very different approach to COVID. The UK decided that rather than basic social distancing measures or hygiene, they'd just get us to stand on the doorstep and clap every week. Clap for our carers, they called it. Yeah, I know, it was ridiculous. And to be honest, I'm really not sure our carers wanted to be given an STD and not when they had a job to do. And due to this lack of policy from Bojo the Clown, thousands of baby boomers and older people died in their homes. So say what you like about Dictator Dan, but his vigilant policies saved thousands of our grandparents. And as far as I'm aware, nurses in Melbourne weren't given chlamydia to do it. Although house prices are still quite high here, though, so maybe the UK's boomer policy had something going for it? Ooh, yeah, dark. But toilet paper, bat porn, and the most extreme measure to decrease housing prices aside, what is immunology? To put it simply, immunology is the study of the immune system. Yep, that's 3.5 years of a Melbourne PhD for that. And I'm more of a translational immunologist in that I study the immune system with a view of creating better therapies. And I'm going to tell you about my work in using the immune system to fight pediatric brain cancer. So inside all of us, we have this autonomous drone system ready to pounce on any foreigner trying to sneak past our borders and take up residence. It's like our own Operation Sovereign Borders, except... Angus Campbell. Instead of locking up innocent people for years, we attempt to eliminate the unwanted guests on site. It's not unlike a Peter Dutton wet dream. And I'm going to turn that off because that's actually pretty upsetting. COVID, that is way more nostalgic and way more comforting. But the immune system isn't just about detecting foreign objects that have entered our body, like viruses or bacteria or spray cans. I'm not going to judge, you do you. The immune system is also highly capable of picking up and destroying cancerous cells. Those same cells that kill COVID-infected cells can also be called upon to kill cancer. And that's what it's doing here, this killing that cancer cell. So I'd like to introduce this little guy. Yeah, he's the hero of our story. Thanks. He's adorable. And I love ChatGPT. It has this whole AI function. You can just create pictures now. And this is the T cell. And actually, he's way more of a Mr. T cell. And that gag does go out to anyone over the age of 45, and I'm glad some of you are with me on this. But Mr. T cell is badass, right? That COVID infection you got from sitting next to Coffee McPrick on the tram on the way here, it's in control from this guy. The T cell can detect the difference between self and non-self, but also dangerous or not. It's very possible that a cancer cell in your body has already been detected and eliminated by this badass. They're kind of like airport security. And just like airport security that profile you as you go through those checkpoints, middle class, okay, posh, okay, balding, overweight guy, wearing a belt, carrying a toddler, seems a bit suspicious, should probably stop him 4 times and swab all his shit just to make sure. Looking at you, Tullamarine. Anyway, the T cell is able to whip into action, and if it detects a cancerous cell, eliminate it on site. And that's what it's doing here. It's giving this wet, sloppy kiss of death, which is also what I call the affection from that said toddler. Now, every story has a villain, and this story is no different. Brain cancer. And brain cancer is not funny. And let's ramp up the stakes and say that this is a pediatric brain cancer, which has seen no improvement in treatment for 30 years. But why doesn't the body's own T cells kill it? I've just told you it can. Well, unfortunately, many cancers, and pediatric brain cancer is no different, can evade the immune system by masking themselves. And this is where we come in. We're looking for ways to turn the immune system back on to see those brain cancers. And as I said, there has been no improvement in pediatric brain cancer for 30 years. And this is despite taking every possible drug developed for adult brain cancer and applying it to kids. And partly this is because we don't understand pediatric brain cancer or even kids' brains. It's taken us years as scientists to figure out what every parent with a 2-year-old knows. Kids' brains are just different to that of an adult's. Kids' brains are more plastic. They're more easily moldable. It's why they can pick up new skills quickly or learn new languages effortlessly or unapologetically shit themselves in the Woolies checkout queue shouting, "Daddy, I did a poo, it was loud and wet!" Which is actually a true story, which I can't wait to retell at a 21st. I'm Dad of the Year. Now, all this changes post-puberty when our brains make a trade-off. We give up on that brain plasticity or moldability for more enhanced cognitive reasoning. And notwithstanding former prime ministers, most of us stop shitting ourselves in public. Although maybe I'm wrong, and that's the real reason all that bog roll seems to sell out super quick at the moment there's a crisis. And ultimately, what this means is that we don't often see the same types of brain cancer that we in kids that we do in adults. There's something about the developing brain that allows that cancer, or specifically pediatric brain cancer, to take hold. So any treatment for brain cancer needs to be specific to kids. And we're doing this by mapping the surface of those tumors. And this is thanks to the unbelievable generosity of recently bereaved parents who donate their kids' tumors to us so that we're able to then really map what the surface of those tumors look like, and importantly, what the immune system might be able to be redirected towards. And once we found that target or tumor-specific marker, we can then take the humble T cell, well, millions of them, and we use a modified virus. And don't worry, it's not COVID. It's way more similar to HIV. It really is. And we insert a new anti-cancer receptor into and we create like this super soldier T cell. Or as I like to call him, Mr. Jimbro. You know the type. All arms, no neck, deals cocaine on the side, full of toxic masculinity. Well, these guys, or these beefcakes, they're called CAR T cells. And they work. This is Emily Whitehead. she was the first child to receive this new modified therapy, this CAR T-cell therapy for her aggressive leukemia back in 2012. And she's now 12 years cancer-free, going on to lead a normal and long life. Hopefully long. She is American. They've got an election coming up. Who knows who's going to win that one? But this therapy has been less successful in solid tumors. And so there are many reasons for this. And so we're also developing new mouse model systems designed to better reflect the pediatric brain cancer, and we're using them to test our new CAR T-cell therapies. Now, it's still early days, but what's really cool is that it appears that CAR T-cell therapy is working in some kids with pediatric brain cancer. DIPG, a pediatric brain cancer so insidious it kills almost all of those diagnosed within 11 months, has seen some good tumor regressions in patients, and in one case, no symptoms or detectable disease in over 2 years. Now that's remarkable. And it shows us that maybe we just need to keep finding those right targets for the right therapy, and that CAR T-cell therapy may have widespread applicability to pediatric brain cancer. So what have I told you? I've told you that I'm taking the tumors from kids with brain cancer and we're mapping their surface. We're then using that information to retrain the soldier cells of our the soldier cells to fight that cancer. We're then making new models to test and evaluate those therapies and find the ones that are really most effective. But I think the most important thing that I've done tonight is to remind you that you probably don't want to have a Mac as an endogame. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. That was very funny, very informative. Exactly what we like at Nerd Night. Do we have any questions from the audience? We've got some time. Yes, straight away, right there.
So, do you want me to repeat the question? Or?
Yeah, if you can.
Okay, so if I remember rightly, you're saying you found it interesting that some cancers can mask themselves, and how have they evolved to do that, or is there or are they a separate organism within that, in that sense? Is that more or less? So, effectively, no. They're just an aberrant cell that has been able to evade the immune system. There are many, many ways that in some cases they can sequester their environment and they can shut down an immune response. But by their very nature, they have in some way avoided the very system that is trying to keep them in check. And so they do this through, it is like a microcosm of evolution. It's like small steps. I'm talking about adult mostly when I say this, so lots of different mutations need to occur, and then they can start to evade, and they can grow without being next to their partners. They can then be hidden from the immune system. To put it also somewhat simply, the immune system normally is able to detect the cancers through a very specific receptor. And so all the cancer needs to do is downregulate that other molecule on the outside, and then they're suddenly hidden from it. Now, there are a lot more complexities to that, but that's essentially the gist of it. So lots of these little mutations build up, and they're able to then, over time, it's like a microcosm of evolution within itself. That's true for adults, or a lot of the time for adults. For pediatrics, it's probably more likely to be something that's occurred before we're born, because they just haven't had time to pick up all of those mutations. And each cancer is going to be different and specific. They'll have specific drivers for that and reasons why they're able to evade the immune system. And in many cases with pediatric brain cancer, we don't actually know what's driving them. Does that answer the question? Cool. That's right.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes, right there in the middle. Yes, you.
Sorry.
So a little bit about the treatment for cancer of children of different ages and how it differs. Yeah.
I will start this. I preface this with saying I'm not a clinician, so my understanding of treatment through the vast majority of them is limited to where I think immunology would be better. But effectively, you've got cutting it out. You've got chemotherapy and you've got radiotherapy mostly, and then you have you have more advanced small molecular inhibitors that should theoretically hit certain targets within the cancer cell. DIPG, for example, can't cut it out because the D stands for diffuse. It's like having a handful of black gravel, throwing it into sand, and then trying to pick out each individual one again. It's just impossible to do. They're chemo-resistant, so they don't respond to chemotherapy, and radiotherapy is palliative at best. So they give about 3 months of extra survival, but it regresses and then grows back, and unfortunately these patients succumb and die. It's going to be different for every pediatric brain cancer. So ependymomas, for example, different brain cancer, children will survive long-term based on how much tumor is resected. So if they get complete resection, they live for a long time. If they get partial resection or even a small amount that's left, they tend to succumb over time, and I think about 10, 15 years. It's going to be different for each different cancer, and unfortunately, depending on what drives the cancer, the therapies themselves may be different. But that's where I think the one benefit that the immunology and CAR T-cell therapy has is I don't care what drives the cancer. Doesn't make any difference to me. What matters to me is what does that tumor look like to the immune system, and can I mount an immune response against it? Because if I can do that and understand how that cancer is interplaying in and around it, because there's an environment around it. So if I can switch that to an anti-cancer environment, throw this T-cell in to detect that target, it'll kill it, and I don't care. And it means you don't have to do surgery, no chemo, that sort of thing. So I'm pretty agnostic on what drives the cancer, and therefore what drug you might be able to add to target. Doesn't bother me. Does that answer?
Perhaps sort of ice creamotherapy as well might actually help.
I saw that and I was like, hell yes.
Yeah. Time for one more question, if there's... Is that a hand at the back? Yes, it is. So what's the long-term risk?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, long-term risk of CAR T-cell therapy?
Yep.
Yeah.
So one thing I can say, for example, the leukemia, they're the ones that have been running the longest. They target a molecule called CD19. Now, CD19 is high on the leukemia cells, but it's also high on your B cells. So these patients don't have B cells because the CAR T-cell comes in and keeps killing them. However, it's a heck of a lot easier to give someone an IgG transfusion every month than it is to bring them back from the dead in that sense. But the long-term risk is us finding the right targets for the right tumors and trying to have them not on healthy cells, or if they are, we're starting to get more sophisticated and have these gating technologies. So we can have logic gates where we can say, right, you're in the brain. Normally a T-cell just goes and it just doesn't know where it is. It's just like, see cancer, kill cancer, woo. Whereas we can now do things where we can actually say, right, you now know where you are. Now that you know you're in the brain, or you've detected this brain marker, now you upregulate your anti-cancer marker. And so maybe the anti-cancer marker is also being expressed in your kidney, but because the T-cell's not in the kidney, or it gets to the kidney but doesn't have the brain location marker, it doesn't upregulate that anti-cancer marker receptor. So we're trying to mitigate any... they call them on-target off-tumor effects, and then long-term problems. And then there's a whole heap of... There's a difference between, obviously, the way the immune system works in an autoimmune disease versus cancer. So there are... I can chat to you later about it as well if you want. But yeah.
All right. Well, happy with that answer, I hope. Well, we might end it there then. Thank you, Alex. And please join me in giving me a round of applause for Alex.